Trav, Nick Connors. Yo, girl, this is your night. I'ma make you feel right. Let's say your heartbreak gone. Now she's so strong. Now she on a higher level, you gotta be on. This is her show, now you gotta perform. If you don't like it, then you better be gone in the morning. She won't roll over. All she got is her when it's all over. Looking at her purse, Fendi all over. She my universe, send me all over. Tell the DJ, bring it back. Got some Dulce, throw it back.
So I'm in a pretty cool area, and I thought I would film a really nice video about how to make your electric bike, look at that, the ship, road legal. And I have a whole infographic on my iPad in here, and I'm gonna get inside and I'm going to explain the processes. So it will be an Uber boat, pretty cool. So it will be like pretty technical, so ideally it would be good if you would take notes or just a screenshot, because you ideally do not want to fail. And you do have to go for a lot of government organizations. So yeah, let's go. It's cool. So I modified this bike really heavily, and I will explain why that's important later on. So for example, the battery is seeing this, but the system is actually seeing this. So that's pretty cool. So what I've essentially done is made an infographic to help us pre-assess ourselves. So we know, for example, you don't want to waste your time, I don't want to waste my time. So we know how successful we would be if we were to, for example, go to the DVLA to try and get a number plate. So if we start with the bike, for example, right? We start here. Okay, so the first thing we need to do is we need to figure out the bike. And this process works for any bike. So, well, almost any bike. It works for your EKX, it works for your E-Ride Pro, your Surrons, your KTM, your TALERIAs, Re-Roads, Kaufens, Solars, depending on where you buy it from, and any kind of electric bike type, motorbike type bike, right? So the first thing you want to do, right, is you want to know, where is the bike? Where are you buying it from? Is the bike in the UK, or is it outside of the UK? And that's very important, right? So you need to figure out, where is it? Where is the location of the bike? Then the next step is you need to know how the bike was imported in the UK. Did you buy it as a built up bike, like it was like, you know, like a car? It was already built up with wheels and everything, and you just want to pick it up? Did you buy it as a kit, as in a box? Because that will affect a lot of what you do, and you had to put it up together. Or did you buy it from outside the UK and you bought it built, right? And this is going to affect you, because what is going to happen is you're going to need something called a NOVA. It's called a notification of vehicle arrival. Now, if you bought it built, right? So you bought the bike built, and you're going for a first registration, they're going to ask you for a NOVA. And essentially what they want to know is that whoever bought the bike has paid import tax on it. But there is not a loophole, but there's an exception, which is why I put exception with evidence, right? And the exception is that your bike has less than 7.3 kilowatts peak power, or it doesn't say peak, but 7.6 kilowatts is the limit, right? Now, if you can prove that your bike has less than 7.3 kilowatts peak, for example, you have a manufacturing plate on that bike, then you can take that evidence and you can send it to the DVLA. And so you won't need the NOVA. If you buy that bike from outside the UK and that bike has more than 7.3 kilowatts, you will need an over. So you need to, whoever's importing the bike into the UK, need to say to HMRC that they're importing your bike, and so when the DVLA does a check, then they will see that you have paid import tax. If you buy it as a kit, where you need to rebuild it yourself, if you have evidence, for example, you have receipts, whatever, like, that's why I always suggest to people to buy it from like AliExpress and Amazon, because that way these companies, they are obligated to pay import tax. So you can just get the receipts and write a cover letter, and that covers you off, right? Now, before we do this, right, before we go straight to the DVLA, because we're going to be excited, we have to do this one little step, which a lot of people, they do not do, and they get a lot of trouble. So as you can see from the guidelines, right? So most of the guidelines, this is HMRC's guidelines. So this is the guideline for the Nova, right? And as you can see, it says it right there. Do not fill this form if, and it says your vehicle is electrically propelled using less than 7.3 kilowatts, right? And you can see it also here, who's not required to provide it. And also it says it here on the Gov website. Yeah, if your vehicle has an engine of 48cc or less. But you see the issue, it's not really the DVLA's fault. It's that you are making a claim as a first vehicle registration. So they don't really know that. All they do is they assess you like any other vehicle, like you are a vehicle manufacturer. So when going to the DVLA, it's highly recommended, right, that you write a cover letter and you get all these evidence and you send it to them along with your cover letter, because they do not know. You also want to get photographs of what it is you're trying to register, and you also want to get pictures of the manufacturing plate, which is very important, which shows and proves that your bike is making less than 7.3 kilowatts. The DVLA is responsible for driver and vehicle licensing. They're responsible for licensing, who's on the road, whatever. But we need to go to the DVSA, and the DVSA are the people who write the standards. So they write the manuals. Even the manuals that I follow at work are written by the DVSA. So why do we need to go to the DVSA? Well, the DVSA, essentially, they create the standards. So this is the manual that they will be using to assess your bike. They essentially create the standards which the DVLA follows. So if you don't go to the DVSA and you send that product to the DVLA, they're going to make you do a lot of work to prove that your product is worthy for the road. And this is why we need to go to the DVSA for testing. Okay, so we're now in a different location, and what we're gonna do is we're gonna I'll just give you a brief outline of actually what they will be looking for, and so that will help you prepare so you don't actually go there and you don't actually fail. So what they're gonna do when you do your MSVA, they will look for certain things. They'll look at it like as though you're a motorcycle. So they'll look at things such as the size of your mirrors. The mirrors need to be bigger than a 10 centimeter circle. All right, that's very important. They're going to look at things such as the ends of your brake bars. They need to be rounded. A 7 millimeter minimum radius. They're going to look for things such as the distance between your indicators. They need to be 240 millimeters apart. They're going to look for the radius, how sharp any unbodied items is. So that's this and this, which is why I have this. This needs to be a minimum of 2 millimeters, the radius. Or you can just put something like this to make it pass. They're going to look for things such as, if I turn the light on, see the main beams? These are for the main beams. And the main beams require something called a telltale. So they're going to look for this. Normally, if you, let's say I turned the controller on, it would be on the display, but they will look for that. So I actually had to make this, and it has to be in a closed loop, as you can see, off, on. So they're gonna look for, you need to be able to, for example, use the indicators without taking your hands off the handlebar, on the horn without taking your hands off the handlebar. They're going to look for things such as the beam pattern, which is important. So if we look at the beam, it mustn't be circular, it must be flat. See, like, it needs to be flat. So you need a flat beam. Okay, let me turn the indicators off just to save battery power. Okay, so they're going to look for things such as the number plate lamp, and the number plate holder and security, because you're obviously saying that you want to make it road legal. So obviously they need to see how strong this is. A number plate lamp, a stop lamp, rear indicators. They're going to look at the tires. Since this is classified as an LPM, they aren't really going to look for e-marking, but they will look for condition of the tires. And then they put it on a brake machine and they test the brakes. So they measure the weight and they test the braking force. And then you need to tell them the exact power, because then they're going to do a power to weight calculation, which is going to affect you. So they look for any of these items, and what is really, really, really important, which this bike does not have, which is why I said I modified this bike, and this is what saved me. They need a manufacturing plate, because they need to know when this bike was manufactured. Now, what you could do, I'm not sure how willing EKX will be to help you with that, is you could take the VIN number, which is right there, and you could maybe contact them, and maybe they would know the exact date, and then maybe give that to you in written form, which you can give to the DVLA. But since I modified this bike very heavily, which is with the motor and the controller and various systems, the chain, and I had evidence of that, they classified this bike as being built in January 2025, because I had to say that it was a kit rebuilt, and since I had evidence of that, so you might encounter problems with that, and that's really important to keep that in mind, because you don't want to go through all that step and then you end up having nothing. So yeah, so then now we can continue. What the DVSA does and what they're looking for. This is the process that I used, and I recommend this process because, for example, if you were to do the application first, once you do the application, they ask you to book a appointment, and if the bike is not ready, you will go and you will fail. So I recommend first you get the MSVA manual. Okay, and the way you get the MSVA manual is very simple. So you go to whatever browser you're using, go to the internet, okay, then you go to the gov.uk website, and then you go gov.uk. Then once you get to the gov.uk website, you go in the search bar and you search for MSVA-1 and you search for that. And this is the application. We don't need the application yet, but you can download it and hold it. And then this is the guidance. This will help you to fill the form. You need that. But really what we need is the manual. So you select it and then you go down and you go to the manual. And then you can read the manual. The manual is about 208 pages and it will really let you know what they're looking for, what the criteria are, and what you need. Once you've gone through the manual and you understand what they're looking for, which I highly recommend, you prepare your bike. You get the mirrors, you get the lighting, you put the indicators, because they're going to test you for full road legal compatibility. Once you've done that, you'll do your test. So that's my bike getting tested. So they test you like a motorcycle. You fill the form in, you send the form, and they will tell you whether or not they've accepted it. Then they will tell you can call, you make a payment. You need to find a DVSA testing station which is nearest to you. So you need to do that and select where you want to go. Then you take it to the testing station, they put it, they test the brakes, everything. And if they're satisfied, they give you the certificate. The certificate has all the necessary information, similar, and then you send that certificate to the DVLA. So I just wanted to add a point which I didn't actually mention. So the very first thing that you need to make sure that you have is actually a VIN number. So you must make sure that your vehicle actually has a VIN number. And if you don't have a VIN number, then you need to apply. You need to write to the DVLA, asking them for one and explain why you need a VIN number. But that only applies if you actually don't have a VIN number. So when they do give you a VIN number, you have to get it stamped into your frame. And that is very important because that is the very first thing they will look for when you take this vehicle to the DVSA. So now we can continue. So now that we've gotten our documentation right, so this is what we need. We need that little certificate, the MSVA certificate, which is a minister's approval certificate. We need that certificate. It is very important, or else the DVLA will make it very difficult for us. So just make sure we have that certificate. Any receipts that you have, which demonstrates the price of the bike, where you bought the bike from, who you bought it from. It's very important. It's very important if it also has, you have like tax receipts. To like, for example, if you bought it from AliExpress, AliExpress has this feature where they give you a tax invoice, so you download the receipt. That's important. You write a cover letter, right? And in that cover letter, you explain what your bike is, where you bought it, what you're trying to achieve. You're trying to register it. It's the first. So because if you understand, when you present it to somebody, that person is responsible for hundreds of vehicles. And so they don't really know what it is. And you explain this as an electric bike. You explain what HMRC's guidelines are. And your bike falls, hopefully, you're not running an Ultra B or some powerful thing like that. And you're, you fall why you don't have a Nova, or if you have a Nova, whatever. Right? If you do have a Nova, you put the Nova number in there. You explain all this, right? You explain what it is. You need to get a copy of your ID, so your license or your passport, and a utility bill, and you put a copy of that in there. You fill the built-up report. Then you are also supposed to put the certificate of newness in there. That's important. Then the V55 4 or 5, whichever you're doing, you put that in there. You take photographs of the bike that you are trying to register. So you take, and what is really important, the manufacturing plate which shows the power of it, which shows the production date, which shows normally it doesn't say the speed on it, but it just says the power, the RPM, stuff like that. You want to take pictures of that. You want to take pictures so they can see it from different angles, and then you want to put all that together in a pack, and then you want to go to the post office. You want to make sure you put that MSV certificate in something waterproof, because that is very, very important. Because let's just say, for example, you were to go to the DVLA and you send all of the documents and you didn't send this document. They're going to look at it and they're going to say that document is basically a certificate of conformity. There are other ways of doing it. You could go get an MOT, but it's easier for you if you get it from the DVSA. So then you put these things together. You go to the post office and you ask them. You say that you want to do a postal order. I can't even see my postal order. There we go. For £55, right? You will also need to pay for the tax. I didn't pay for the tax because when I registered it, electric vehicles were exempt, but from the 1st of April, you will have to pay £25 tax. So you also need to do for the tax, and you put all these things together, and then you send it to the DVLA. And if you've done all these steps correctly, you will get a nice little letter in the mail telling you that your vehicle has been authorized, and they tell you the registration. I got a 74 plate, which is pretty cool. And then you can have your number plate made. If you have a motorcycle license, you won't need L plates and a CBT. But if you don't have one, then you will need to do a CBT and ride with L plates. And that's it. And that's the process. And that's how we go about it. Hope this helps. Let me know if I didn't explain anything clear enough. Thank you for watching. Please like if you found this very useful. Thank you.